So first I'd like to introduce Jim. So you know he's from Gartner. He now runs his own firm. But I also like to think of him as one of the most interesting people I've ever met. Seriously, this guy has got, besides actually coining the phrase BPM for Gartner, he was the one who kind of led the first program. He also has had artwork hung in the Louvre. He's had artwork displayed in Times Square. He's a race car driver and now is starting to work on the whole band thing. So I assume we're going to see his picture on Rolling Stones magazine here before too long. So he's just an overachiever in every sense of the word. And so we're really proud to have him and happy to have him here. Right?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll give you the 20 when nobody's looking.
Next slide. Next slide.
Let me...
So as he's doing that, so Jim has a blog. And the reason that we have him here is that we have, Jim's got a blog that he talks about digital transformation. And when we started reading it, it became very obvious that what Jim is talking about is exactly what we talk about. The way we think about digital transformation, the way we think about the platform approach to doing that, all that is really very evident in Jim's blog. So we invited him down to really to take a look at what we have, to take a look at the market, and also to see CeBIT. It's his first time at CeBIT. So the first question I like to ask probably any of these guys is what is your best example of digital transformation, Jim?
Well, there are a number of great examples in the world, but the one that reaches my heart the most is we're living on an overpopulated planet. And one of the issues that we have to deal with is food. And there's an example of 5 farms over in Australia that did a digital transformation, and they increased their productivity by 40%. So they're able to produce 40% more crops. Closer? I may as well eat the thing.
You want the big deep voice, though.
Exactly.
Deep.
Let's do that.
All right.
And so in Australia, they took a number of fields and they threw pills out in those fields that were electronic, and they were dialed in for the particular crops that they were growing. And those pills knew how much water and how much fertilizer those plants needed to have optimum growth. And so what would happen, and if you know Australia, it's quite desert-like. They had robotic arms that would come out with water and liquid fertilizer at the right time when the pills in the field said, hey, I need water. Well, consequently, they were able to raise the amount of output and yield for each one of those fields and those crops. And then they linked it to water runoff models that were in the area. There were mountains in the background where water would come from. And so the pills would ask for water, but yet they knew that there was a storm 2 days ago and it would reach the fields. And then they linked it into their national weather system. So this particular set of farms were able to increase yield and not waste as much water, and the plants were given a perfect environment to thrive in.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, one of my very favorite I've actually heard about was a company in Switzerland. They manufacture toilet paper. And what they did, they actually put sensors on the toilet paper dispensers so they can look and profile how men and women use toilet paper differently. They can actually guarantee on-time delivery that you'll never go out of this critical resource. So although it seems like it's just a small thing, imagine being a vendor at a restaurant or a hotel and never having to worry about it. They'll deliver it before you're ever out. It's kind of a slick thing, right? So Jim, what exactly is, when we talk about digital transformation, everyone says it's everywhere we look in CeBIT. What is digital transformation exactly?
Well, digital transformation is the ability to leverage digital technologies for a particular goal. Now, there are 3 goals that organizations seem to be aiming at today. One is to have a better customer experience. It's not about customer relationship management. It's about the overall feeling that the customer has, that they have control. They feel good about the organization. They feel like they can get things done. That's the first target that most organizations are going for. Most started with mobile, but that's long gone. We need more than that. The second is around operational efficiency and operational excellence. And this is where you're, in the example of the farm, that's what they were after, operational excellence with those plants. So the idea of getting more with less is the second step of digital, and usually the second goal. And the third goal is to create services and products, new services and products. Now those are for organizations that are not under duress. If there's an upstart in your industry, you may be forced to come up with a whole new business model, and that's a fourth different area, but that's not happening en masse today.
So is there a specific order that you see companies going in? Is it always starting with customer first and then moving into operational excellence, or is there some other thing?
Well, there are a number of organizations that have decided to do two things at least at once. They work on the customer relationship capability while they're defining a new business. So for instance, over in the United States, there's a car service called Uber, which changed the way taxis work in the U.S. And Uber basically used the internet to say who your closest driver was. They come up with a cheaper rate if you go during off time. And so if you're working for a taxi company, and I know one taxi company where I come from in Phoenix, Arizona, called Discount Cab. So they're working on two things to fight Uber off. One is to have better customer relationships, and the other is to set up a parallel business model that is, a pay for a private ride to compete with Uber. So the sequence depends on what kind of pressure you're under and what you're interested in. Some organizations have decided to use operational efficiency to fund their digital transformation. For instance, they may decide, since it's very easy to improve processes and get strong rates of return, to use part of the return to fund digital transformation. So the sequence isn't necessarily obvious. It depends what's going on in the organization and what management wants.
So is it only mature companies that are looking to do this? I mean, I understand like Uber, but they didn't start with a complete platform. These guys did something as kind of tactical. Is the market mostly for kind of mature companies or upstarts or both?
Well, if you're an upstart, you can start with digital and it gives you a great advantage. But most of the companies that we have to work with are established. And because they're established, they have established customers, they have established revenue lines, they have certain expectations that the market expects from them. They have to approach it a little bit differently than an upstart. As long as there's no upstart in your industry, which you can't necessarily guarantee, for a long period of time, you can make progress. But the digital platforms are so fast in the way you can develop with them that risk can be obviated.
Yeah, I actually just recently read, I think last week, that Uber, which moves more people than anything else in the world, but they own no vehicles, right? They also started a new service where they deliver puppies. For 15 minutes, they will drive a puppy to you. You get to hug the puppy for a while, and then come back, right? And so even their model is starting to change and evolve because they still have to be competitive against companies that can catch up eventually. Huh? So Jim, what does it take? So is it a platform? Is it best of breed, best of platform? What exactly is it to start this thing?
Well, there's a couple of things you have to do. One is you have to take a good look at yourself, and that means you may have to change your culture, your goals, your principles, and those are things around methodology and organization and skills and competencies. And that's one track. But in order to do that effectively, you need some form of digital platform. And there are a couple of ways of getting a digital platform. One is to go and buy one, all put together ahead of time. The other is to build it yourself. Now, I don't know if you've ever done that before. I did it for two companies in two different eras where we had to build platforms. Now, these were not digital platforms. One was a database platform, and another one was a model-driven development platform, one for American Express and one for Northwestern Mutual Life. It was very expensive. We needed a lot of highly skilled people. And so it's my assertion that you're better off buying one off the shelf than you are trying to build one yourself and put it together. But there's some companies that think they have the skill sets and the time and the money to do it.
So is there a cost difference? I mean, yeah, again, I go back to, is it best to breed, right? Will that be faster to do those kind of things than it would be to do a platform?
Well, there's three ways to buy. One is best to brand, and then you're stuck in a stack and whatever they do. The other is best to breed, where you bring it together yourself, and the other is best platform. And depending upon your company's culture and your size, certainly a mid-sized company is not going to put together a best of breed. The problem with best of breed, if you do have the money, is you have to get all the skills and you have to integrate them. And integration of separate tools in a stack is very difficult.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it kind of leads to a question, is how long does something like this take? If I'm going to start the process now, I look around and see my competitors on both sides are starting to do digital transformation. They're kind of ahead of me. And I start, let's say I get something. How long can I expect to have to be in this? Or is that a never-ending battle?
Well, there are a couple of ways of doing it. One is big bang, and I find that does not work unless you're under duress. The other is incremental transformation, where you gather benefits along the way and you increment towards an end goal. So you start with a large scope and you take a piece of it at a time. It's a lot like eating an elephant a bite at a time. Some parts taste better than others. That's one way to do it. The other way is to take the incremental approach and then add rapid development. So add a RAD approach to that, and you can cycle through very quickly. We've seen some organizations, I'm going to give another example. This again is in the Australian market. There was I don't know if you know what's going on with banks, there's a tremendous amount of consolidation in banks. And so if you're a mid-sized bank, you're a big bank's meal about being prepared. So this small mid-sized bank said, well, we didn't want to be gobbled by a larger bank. So they came up with a small digital platform, and they came up with ways of processing loans and dealing with financial transactions, and particularly loans, much faster than the big banks. And they were literally able to steal money away from the larger banks in Australia. ME Bank is the name of the bank.
So Jim, you again, I want to disclose, we did invite him here, and so take his answer for all that. But Jim, as a neutral party, right? If you aside from the fact that you're here for us, you've looked at our technology, you've heard what we have to say, you've been here for a couple of days. What do you think?
Well, what I've seen is I've known all the tools that are in your toolbox for a number of years. I've covered your technologies for a long time. And each one of them in and of themselves is quite good. So you have the ingredients of very good tools. Now the question is, did you take the time to integrate them properly? And from what I've seen to date, yes, you have. Now, I'm going to keep my eyes open and my ears open to see what your customers say in the long run. And when they take on very large-scale challenges, I'm going to take a look at that. But I have heard a number of examples at the conference that give me an idea that you're headed the right way.